little bit of backstory here. What you're going to see is my final project for my project and portfolio class 5. I'm a music production student at Full Sail University, and for this assignment, we basically worked on this over a month. And every week, he gave us different requirements that we needed to hit. So he was trying to replicate us working with a client, and the client saying, I need this, no, I need this. And then finally on the last week, he gave us all of our final parameters of what you're going to hear today. So some of the stuff you're going to hear, I had to do a time signature change. I needed to have pedal tones. I needed to do some call and response, some rhythm work, and I'll show you the requirements maybe here when we jump into the Logic session. But the song choices he gave us were Spotify playlists that had like 10 to 12 different tracks on it, and I love the Game of Thrones song. I watched the Tom Morello and Brad Paisley video prior, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that inspired what you're about to hear. I had to do my own artistic articulation of the song, so what I wanted to do was blend my love of metal with synth waves. So you're going to hear a lot of synthesizer work, and you're going to hear some really cool metal tones. All of the guitar tones you're going to hear were tracked with the Tone Master Pro. The bass was tracked with the Tone Master Pro, but I just used it as an interface, and I used Amplitude 5. So the way that I'm going to break this down, this might be a longer video because I saw some people were asking for some Logic Pro tips. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to jump into the session file. I'm going to show you the requirements that I had to do for the assignment. I ended up making a 92 on this, so great. And at Full Sail, I feel like they're like English papers. It's damn near impossible to make hundreds on it. You know, the perfect paper doesn't exist, just like the perfect mix. But I'll show you guys what I did. So the first part, we'll listen to the song entirely, and then the second part of this video, I'll go through and I'll break down how I went about building this track, because I did some different modulations from the original. So let's get into it. Alright, so jumping into the project file, over here, these are my requirements that were given to me from my professor. So I need to have a time signature switch, I must have concert rhythm, break in texture, call and response, a solo moment, and a pedal tone. You can pause the video and read everything that he gave us, but that's kind of like an overview. Now, for the other producers that are watching this, giving yourself very similar, like you have to have these things in a mix. I find that the more constraints I can put on my creativity, the more creative I am. So I encourage you that if you watch this and you feel inspired, come back, grab a screenshot of the requirements, and then try to do your own version of either Game of Thrones or your own song using those parameters. All right, so here we go. We're going to listen to the song first. It's only about 2 minutes and some change, and then I'll break it down. Oh man, that was so much fun to put together. All right, so a couple of things. I just had so much fun doing this. I know you guys probably saw me sitting here jamming, but I just love doing this. I was not expecting it to go in this direction. So, okay, well, I'm gonna keep that in there. I started off. So the first thing I want to do is start off with a pedal tone. My wife got me the Korg Minilog XD, which is my first analog synthesizer, and I'm studying piano. I studied piano in college, and I recently started taking lessons with it. So I started off with just doing this pedal tone. Now we're not gonna play. Okay. And you can see there's some automation. You can see there's some automation going on the track. All I'm doing is I started off with just a D, and I built out this patch and brought it in. When I heard that, I was like, oh man, maybe I can do some other stuff with it too. And I might have to fight this. I don't want this on at all. Same thing here. So you stack two of these synthesizers together, and you get a really cool, like I think it was like kind of like a bed for other things to sit on top of. And I'll talk about some of the stuff on the EQ later. I just want to talk about how I built the track. Then I'll talk about stuff that's on the actual signal, or like, you know, the mixing and mastering side of it. But all I thought about doing here was introducing the nylon guitar of just kind of like the theme. So let me pull this back. I don't know why this is fighting me right now. Yeah, and as you can hear, the only thing that's on there is the reverb. The presets that you're hearing, this is my Ibanez Tim Henson nylon guitar. Is my Juicy Cleans preset that you can download from the Fender Cloud. That's just like my favorite clean tone lately. And then the bass is very similar. All I'm doing is holding on to D. Now, the reason why everything is in D, I think the original track I was listening to was in, I believe, C minor. But with it being metal, I wanted to incorporate a drop D tuning. So I was like, wow, well, I could play it in C minor, but that's kind of lame unless I use drop C, and none of my guitars are set up for D standard right now or drop C. So I just transposed everything down to D minor. So I think the chord progression is D minor, A minor, C major, G minor, which that was interesting. So, but yeah, that's the whole chord progression. In the beginning, even though it's kind of more into a free time, and this is where I lost points too, because I was trying to cheese it without having to be going from 4/4 to 6/8. So maybe if I would have done this correctly, maybe I would have gotten 100. I was just like, I'm trying to make this fit my narrative, your stuff, like as a creative. But the beginning is all in 4/4, and really it's free time, meaning there's no really set time. That's how the audience will perceive it, but there was definitely a click track running when I was recording this. And then for drums, because I know a lot of people are probably going to ask where the drum sounds are coming from, I cheat when it comes to drums. If you've never seen this software, this is about to blow your mind. So this is Easy Drummer 3, and it's basically one of my favorite plugins of all time. It is kind of expensive, but I got it on a Black Friday sale, so I think the plugin might be $150 to $300 in that price. I don't remember. I got it for like $150, and then it came with like a bunch of freebies. But basically, there's two things you can do with this. You can come in and you can program your own drum editor, which I'm far too lazy to do that. So what I typically do is, you can even see it. I go in here and I search, and you can see all the different add-ons that I've bought over time. I found a groove, and I did all the mixing and editing you're going to hear on the drums. But I basically grabbed a groove, dropped it in, and I write to it. And I do this for everything. For the mixer, I just kept everything at Unity, and then I pumped it through. I'll show you the signal chain on this in a second. But what's cool about this is that in a traditional band setting, if you can get a drummer to play an electric drum kit where you can get MIDI from it, you can take his electric drum kit and you can use it and map it out in here. And the cool thing is you basically get an expensive studio for $150 or $300, whatever the price is. Sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head. But you have access to, this is just one pack. Whenever you buy the base kit, you get 3 packs, and then you can buy packs on top of that. So I have 3 of the stock kits plus the, I think it's called like modern metal. We'll see in a second. But yeah, I brought, this is like one of my favorite kicks. You can hear it's tight, bright, and you can come in, you can change the volume, the tuning. I kept the tune. Typically, I'll drop the tuning, but this one already sounds kind of fit well in this mix, so I just left it as is. But yeah, you can see you've got 3 different packs to pull from in the bass pack, and then I bought modern metal to go with it. Or that was the freebie that I got. And I just go around and I mess around with each drum, really fine tune it to what I want. So I use that to come up with all the drum parts. And the cool thing is it has this thing called Bandmate. Maybe I'll create a whole video showing you this later. But Bandmate, you can basically take a riff that you've written, you can export it out, and then it uses machine learning to basically analyze the transients in your riff, and it'll come up with suggested drum parts to go with it. And then you can take that part, drop it into what's called Song Creator, and then it'll give you like 6 different variations of an intro, 6 different variations of a verse, chorus, pre-chorus, bridge. Like, it is just, if you were a solo artist like I am right now, this is an invaluable tool to help speed up the process. Because, yeah, you can go through and, like, if I'm doing my own compositions, yeah, I'll go through and I'll mess around on the grid if I'm feeling up to it. But honestly, Easy Drummer is just, the name checks out. It's Easy Drums. I recently got the Easy Keys, too. And, man, these tools are just like, what a tool, right? It's crazy. It feels like you're cheating, but you're not. So, using a tool given to you. Yeah, I guess we'll talk about mix. So, the guitar tones, you're going to see me do 2 things here. Basically, anytime I'm doing any type of rhythm work, I record it in 2 different tracks, but not at the same time. You're going to do some re-recording. Hold on, there's some... Why is this? Okay. So a little bit of automation going on here. I didn't want to double track or triple track this, so the distortion left plays the intro. That's my break in silence, or whatever it is, break in texture. And then what I typically do, guitar left is going to be the bridge pickup, and then guitar right will be the same amp, same settings, but the neck pickup. Then what I do to make it sound a little bit thicker with 2 C's is I pan. Typically I'll do right and left 30, minus and plus 30. I find that's wide enough where it kind of feels, you gotta, when you're doing panning, and this can be as complicated as you want it to be, but you need to think about a band on a stage and try to replicate that. So typically, like, when I'm playing in a band, I'm always stage right. Stage right is my home. Don't put me on stage left. I'll feel naked. But you're going to have a guitar on stage right. You're going to have a guitar on stage left. A singer, bass player will probably be on stage left. And then the drummer. And then whenever you're panning out drums, you want to think about where the drums are. And whenever you hit it, where is that sound going? So there's a whole science to it. And when you start getting into panning, it can feel like a little bit like, oh, man, there's a lot. Just think guitar 30 minus 30. And then bridge pickup, neck pickup. And you can change that around. But the thing is that if you want your guitar to sound like this, oh, it's crashing on me because I'm doing too much. Here we go. Notice that bridge has a lot more bite to it, so it's getting the effects that I want. If you just try to double track it and you just say, like, I'm going to use the bridge on the left and the right, like, you think you're going to be sneaky and just try to pan only one pickup on, it's not going to do the effect. Like, you might as well just keep it mono. But if you change pickups, and some people will change amps too, I just think that sometimes that can clash in the rhythm setting, because the rhythm setting, like, you should have one rhythm sound, unless if you're doing like harmony with yourself. But change the pickups and it just gives your guitar so much more life. I guess we'll go ahead and look at the signal pathing on this. Yeah, so EQing, I just use my ears here. I know where the sweet spot is for the sounds that I'm going for, but it changes every guitar. And EQing is just something that you really just got to spend a lot of time in. And you need to, so I do 2 mixes. I will EQ for each instrument, but I'm also thinking about where is this instrument sitting in the overall sound mix. So when we're talking about frequency response of a guitar, let me make sure that I'm soloing this guitar out. You know, by itself, you're like, wow, he really took out a lot of the low end. But that's by design, because my bass guitar, I play a Stingray bass, and it has an active EQ on it, so I know where that bass is going to sit in, and I basically don't want my guitar competing with sound space with my bass. So I cut with that in mind. The guitar that I use on this is a Ibanez Axion label, and it has the active Fishman Fluence series, and those pickups are really, really hot. So I did a really aggressive EQ, and I pulled up the things that I wanted, and I pulled down the things that I didn't want. And that's kind of my spin on EQ. And some people might look at this and be like, oh my God, that EQ's it's aggressive. But it works in the overall mix. And I was actually complimented it. That was the one thing it complimented me on, was like, your mix was really good. It's like, you just need to play to the grading criteria. I was like, man, I'll take a 92 though. But yeah, typically, you know, if you watched the video yesterday that I posted on Install Master Pro, I was talking about running a compressor at the very end of my signal chain. And the reason is because every time I am mixing and recording, everything is going through at least one, if not two compressors. And we'll see if I did the final compressor at the end. But the compressor that I use for my guitars, I'll change. I was trying something different with this vintage VCA compressor, but most of the time the Platinum Digital, and this is all stock Logic Pro plugins, is really good. So when I'm doing a compression, what I am looking for between my threshold is I'm trying to get where I can pull out -5 dB on the compression. Let me see. Logic's acting up. I know I said I was trying to hit -5 and you're seeing -10. I think my mindset here was that Fishman pickup was just really... I'm not used to playing active pickups, so I compressed the hell out of that guitar. But I like the way that it sounded in the overall mix, and it got what my ear was trying to go for. But typically when I'm mixing and mastering, I'm trying to pull out at least -5 dB for the compression. The last thing I did for the bus, so for the bus signal path, this is Chromaverb, which is just reverb. It is just a really, really cool reverb. This is, again, another stock plugin with Logic Pro. Now listen, Logic Pro is the most expensive DAW on the market because you also have to have a Mac with it. But if you are a creative, don't worry about Pro Tools. Listen, I have both. I have to use both for school. Every class I'm in with Pro Tools is a pain to use. But if you want to hire me as a studio professional, I'll use it. If you say, hey, I need this work done, you use your own tool, I'm going to do Logic. Unless if it's like a movie track and I have to work with like 200 stems, then that's when you want to use Pro Tools. But if you were someone who's just trying to write music, if you were a songwriter, Logic Pro, it just enables you because it gives you everything you need, and it just makes it so intuitive. You know, I mean, it's an Apple product. What do you expect? They're going to put a lot of time into user experience and user interface. All right, so that was that pickup. If we look into now, like, mind you, this is going to be the neck pickup. Now again, we're struggling because I'm recording so many different things. Yeah, oh, you can hear that reverb really good on this track. Let's see what I did on the compressor side. Yeah, again, I was really compressing that pickup. Yeah, and again, it just all comes to what your ears hear. So whenever I am doing my mixing and mastering, yeah, I have some tendencies that I typically like to do, but every song is its own beast, and I kind of just go into it with a mindset of, like, I'm going to let the song guide me here. And I know that might sound like a little woo-woo for some people, but it's how I do it. It's how I've built out my process, thanks to Full Sail. My professors have preached that, so shout out to them. Let's see, for drums, this is where mixing gets a little bit different. Now, this is a school project, so I don't put as much time into my school projects as I do my personal projects. I'll just go ahead and admit it. On personal projects with Easy Drummer, what I will do is I will create at least like 16 tracks, and I will export as if I had microphones on each drum with 2 overheads and room mics. You can do that, but for this project, since I only had a week and I was also working on some personal projects, I just kept everything inside of Easy Drummer plugin, and then I did a general EQ. The issue I was having with this was, man, the low end was just like, it was killing me. So I did an aggressive high-pass filter. You can see that there. And then I also have my low-pass filter because the cymbals were a little hot. So I pulled that out, and then I compressed the heck out of it. And I had to pull out a ton of gain. Oh, snap. I don't want to do that. Okay, well, I just messed up. I'm not going to save this, but at least you can see. Oh, I put my vocal track back. But at least you can see what I did. Let's see. For bass, we'll look at that. Bass, yeah, nothing too crazy. I even used a preset here. Presets are, I don't know. I like doing it myself, but on this one again, the objective was to move fast because they added the difference between week 3 and week 4 is basically I had to redo the whole song. And that was intentional for my professors, right? They want you to get used to working with clients where clients are like, oh, yeah, that was cool, but, can we just redo everything? So, but I have my EQ for my bass tones. This is another plugin that I got on a Black Friday sale. This is Amplitude 5, and this is like the ultimate Mac Daddy package. So I have access to everything in here. I got this. I think this software typically is like, I think it's, if you don't get it on sale, it's like $600, but I got it on sale for $100, and that's a steal. It would be a steal if it was just this bass amp. This is the best bass tone. So what I do for my workflow is my Tone Master Pro basically works as my interface, and then I go straight into here, and I just have this as my bass tone preset. So any song that you hear of me producing, this is the bass tone on it. It's just super rich and thick, and you can hear it. And that's me playing bass on it too. I love playing bass. I keep it groovy, man. And then again, the compressor. Yeah, you can see I try to get closer to the 5. But again, I use a preset here. I cheated. I didn't even do it myself. Oh well. Moving fast, man. It worked good. It sounded well. Let's see. The last thing that I should probably touch on here is probably just the synthesizer work. This is like, I built this sound. My wife just got me the coolest gift. I just think synthesizers are so... I love synthesizers, man. Listen, Moog, however you want to say his name, died for our synths. So use them. But here's the patch that I built. And I basically, what I did with my synthesizers is I kind of use them like pads. And if you're unfamiliar with synths world, you kind of have different roles that a synthesizer can play. You have like a traditional keys, so anything a keyboard can play, a synthesizer can do if you built the right patch for it. You have pads, which pads are kind of like that, what you heard in the beginning, that monotone pedal tone, where it kind of gives you a bed for you to build upon. You have leads. And I would say this is more arguably like a lead thing, but what I wanted to do is I softened up a lot of the arpeggiators. So, because a lot of times when you hear leads, it's going to be kind of harsh, so it can break through the mix. This is very like lo-fi-ish vibe with an arpeggiator. So what I did was I created this, and let's see if I did automation on it. Yeah, I just pulled down the volume because it's kind of like you can just see it from the transient waves. It's already a very small wave. I pulled it down in the mix, and I just let it add some texture to the overall blend. So if we go back, you heard it solo, and hopefully Logic doesn't keep slowing down on me, but it doesn't like all this stuff I'm doing. Let's zoom out. Okay, so here it is in the total mix. You can hear that it's very quiet in the mix, and now that I've pointed it out, you can probably hear it, but before you probably couldn't. And that's how I like to use synthesizers. Like, they'll stand out, in some cases, but most of the time they should just be there to boost everybody else up and give them a good bed to sit on. Again, sonic bed is what I think of with synthesizers. What else? I think that's just about it. I guess at the end I'll talk about this stream, and then we'll probably call it there. So this is my first time actually messing with this plugin. So again, I'm using the Tone Master Pro for the tones. The preset for this is called Juicy Cleans YouTube. It's uploaded to the Fender Cloud. That's what I started off with. But when I was mixing and mastering, I was like, man, you know what would sound really cool? And again, this is a polyrhythm. I think this is a 2-against-3 thing I was doing with my right hand. And the chord progression is just D minor, A minor 9, C major 7 to a G minor 9. What I wanted to do was have it where it was like kind of shooting back and forth in my headphones. So I used stereo delay. You can see the exact settings that I did. And here is the result that I got with it. And again, the only thing that's on here is a channel EQ where I wanted to pull out some low end because the low end was competing with my synthesizer, a compressor, and that stereo delay. And then I busted out to my reverb, which I should probably put on just so you can hear it. Yeah. You hear it? And I just like the overall vibe that gave me. Now, so that's me going through each track and mixing and mastering. For the final mixing and mastering, I tried something new. Apple just came out with an AI to help you do your final mixing and mastering. To be honest, I don't really know that much about what it did, but I used it. It's a tool I wanted to try out. It was cool. All I had to do was barely change any of the settings. But the only thing you need to know is that whenever you are doing this, writing and recording, there needs to be basically 2 steps. First, you need to do composition, right? So get in here, write all your parts. And I guess there's more than 2, probably 3 steps. So write all your parts. The second thing you need to do is arrange all your parts, because a lot of the times when I'm writing this stuff, I don't write in linear order. You know, I came up with a doing the guitar part first, and then I built everything around that. So after you do your arranging, then you might need to do any type of retakes, or to be honest, not on all of my tracks, I won't go back and do a full playthrough. Should I? Probably. Do I? No. I'm just going to be real with you. And because not all tracks need it. If you play in time, and you can quantize too, sometimes the quantizing can get a little messy, but if you play to the grid, I don't want to say all the time, it really just depends on the song. But you can go back and listen and be like, do I need to redo this and do a full playthrough, or is this good enough? So most of the time I don't do replaythroughs. Maybe I should. Maybe that's something I'll change, but I guess I did on the bass. Bass took me 3 takes and I was done. Got it. So after I get all my parts arranged, then mixing and mastering, because a lot of the stuff you'll do on the mixing and mastering, it'll add latency. So if for example, this mastering final plugin, it adds latency. So if you're recording, you're like, man, I know I'm playing in time, but it's recording out of time. Maybe you're having too much latency. There is a setting you can change on Logic Pro. You can either pull it up top, or I can't really show you it because my screen, I'm on an ultra wide monitor, and I've made this smaller, so hopefully it'll look better on YouTube. But if you go up to, I think it's record in the top, and then if you go to low latency monitoring mode, that'll ensure that you're recording without any delay or latency. And I'll show you my settings. Here they are. You can see my input device, Tone Master Pro, output device, Tone Master Pro, my I/O, and then it tells me what my latency is based on this. It's pretty much near impossible to record without some latency, but if I can get it below, I think 5 milliseconds, that's such low latency that my ear cannot perceive it. But the more stuff that you're adding into your Logic Pro session, you got to keep in mind that's going to take computational resources. So what that results in is slowing down your computer, which is going to give you latency. But that's why it's important to get a really nice computer. Like, if you're going to do this, get a MacBook Pro. Get something that has the M1 chip. The M1 chip architecture is just so much faster than the Intel architecture, especially with Apple native projects like Logic Pro. Because that's going to be where you're capped at, right, is your computer. But the good thing is that most of the songs that we grew up loving were made on really low-end computers by today's standards. So it's not impossible. It's just if you're going to use all these toys that I'm doing, you really got to have a good computer to boost it up. All right, well, that's going to conclude today's video. Probably a longer video than what I hoped it would be, but I wanted to take the time to go into detail about how I mix and master using Logic Pro, because I saw there were a bunch of comments talking about Logic Pro tips. So hopefully this at least gave you some idea of how I go about songwriting. And again, this is just a cover for school. As I continue to make these videos, I'll show you how I do my individual projects. If you are interested in studying both guitar concepts and writing and recording concepts in greater detail, consider checking out my Patreon. It's patreon.com/DamianAndy. There'll be a link in the bio. It's $5 a month. We've already got a bunch of beautiful people over there that have jumped from YouTube, so thank you guys. I appreciate all of you. Don't be afraid to reach out. If you have questions, leave it in the comment section. I'm very active in my comment section. And lastly, what I encourage you to do is leave me a comment about one or two things that you're grateful for. Big fan of Attitude of Gratitude, so let me see it. All right, well, I'm going to jump out of here. Thank you guys so much. I'm grateful you guys are watching this. I'm grateful I get to create music for a living. And with that, I'll see you in the next episode.